Ever wondered how to make organic beer at home? Wonder no more. Today we're embarking on a delightful journey into the world of organic brewing. We'll demystify the process, breaking it down into simple, easy-to-follow steps. You'll discover the joy of creating a refreshing brew, free from artificial additives, right in your own kitchen. The beauty of organic beer is not just in its taste, but also its contribution to a healthier living. Ready to take a dive into the world of organic brewing? Then buckle up. Before we get started, gather all the necessary ingredients and equipment. To make your own organic beer, you'll need a few key ingredients: organic malt, organic hops, organic yeast, and of course, water. The malt provides the sweet base, the hops add bitterness, and the yeast is responsible for fermentation. It's important to source these ingredients from certified organic suppliers to ensure no chemicals sneak into your brew. As for equipment, you'll need a brewing pot, a fermenter with an airlock, a thermometer, a hydrometer, and a good old-fashioned stirring spoon. The brewing pot is where all the magic happens, while the fermenter is where your beer will transform over time. The thermometer and hydrometer help you keep a close eye on temperature and sugar levels, ensuring a successful brew. And the stirring spoon? Well, it's for stirring, of course. With all these items in place, you're set to start brewing your own organic beer. Now on to the brewing process. This is where the magic happens. Let's start with the ingredients. For a basic brew, you'll need malted barley, hops, yeast, and water. The barley is what gives the beer its body and sweetness. The hops add that distinctive bitter flavor. The yeast is our magic ingredient that transforms the sugars into alcohol, and the water, well, it's the base of everything. First, we need to prepare our malted barley. This involves milling or crushing it to break open the grains. This step is crucial because it allows the water to access the starches inside the grain and convert them into sugars during the brewing process. Next, we move on to what is often considered the heart of the brewing process, the mashing. Mashing is essentially steeping the malted barley in hot water. This activates the enzymes in the grain, converting the remaining starches into sugars. This creates a sweet liquid known as wort. Once we've got our wort, we need to separate it from the spent grains. We do this through a process called lautering. The wort is drained off, and the remaining grains are rinsed to extract any residual sugars. Now that we have our sweet, sugary wort, it's time to add some bitterness to balance it out. This is where the hops come in. We add the hops to the wort and boil it. The boiling not only extracts the bitterness from the hops, but it also sterilizes the wort, making it ready for fermentation. After boiling, the wort needs to be cooled as quickly as possible. This is because yeast, our next ingredient, prefers a cooler environment to work its magic. Once cooled, we transfer the wort to a fermentation vessel and add the yeast. As soon as the yeast is added, it gets to work, eating up the sugars in the wort and converting them into alcohol and carbon dioxide. This process is called fermentation, and it's where our sugary wort starts to become beer. So far so good, but we're not done yet. Let's move on to the next step. Welcome back. Let's continue where we left off. So you've got your wort bubbling away nicely. Now it's time for the next stage, the fermentation. This is where the magic happens as yeast converts the sugars in the wort into alcohol. But since we're making a non-alcoholic brew, we'll be focusing on the flavor development during this stage, which is just as important. For the fermentation, we transfer the wort into a fermenter, which is essentially a large container that allows the yeast to do its work. This process takes about 1 to 2 weeks. You'll know it's done when the bubbling slows down and eventually stops. Now, patience is key here. Don't rush this process. Let the yeast take its sweet time. It's crafting your beer's flavor profile after all. Once fermentation has completed, it's time to move on to the conditioning phase. This is when your beer gets its final flavor and carbonation. The beer is transferred to a secondary fermenter, where it will sit for another week or 2. Again, patience is your friend. You don't want to rush perfection. Next up is the bottling stage. This is where you'll need your bottles, caps, and a bottle capper. You'll transfer the beer from the fermenter into the bottles, leaving a bit of space at the top. Then cap each bottle securely. Now here comes the hardest part of the entire process, waiting. Your beer needs time to carbonate in the bottle, which can take anywhere from 2 weeks to a month. Use this time to clean up your equipment, and maybe even start planning your next brew. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, your beer is ready to be enjoyed. Crack open a bottle, pour it into a glass, and take a moment to admire your handiwork. You've created a delicious, organic, non-alcoholic beer, all from the comfort of your own home. And there you have it. You've successfully brewed your own batch of organic beer. So, what have we learned today? We've journeyed together through the fascinating process of brewing organic beer. We've seen that it's not only doable but also incredibly rewarding. And the best part? It's all natural. No nasty chemicals involved. We started off by gathering the essential ingredients: organic malt, hops, yeast, and water. Remember, quality is key here. The better the ingredients, the better the beer. Then we moved on to the brewing process. The first part was the mashing, where we combined our malt with hot water to extract the sugars. This step is crucial as it determines the sweetness and alcohol content of the beer. Next, we boiled the mixture and added the hops. This is what gives our beer its unique flavor and aroma. Whether you prefer a bitter IPA or a fruity pale ale, it's all about the hops. We then cooled the mixture and added the yeast, kicking off the fermentation process. This magical little organism transforms the sugars into alcohol and carbon dioxide, giving us the bubbly, boozy brew we all love. Finally, we bottled our beer and let it mature. Patience is a virtue, especially in brewing. The longer you wait, the better the taste. In conclusion, brewing your own organic beer is a fun, rewarding process. It gives you full control over what goes into your drink, making it a healthier and tastier option. And that's it. Now you know how to make organic beer at home. Happy brewing!